Most people still believe gasoline comes from deep underground, ancient oil, fossil fuel, giant drilling rigs tearing holes into the earth, while politicians argue about prices and wars, quietly reshape entire economies behind closed doors. But somewhere in the middle of the desert, scientists pointed mirrors at the sun, captured heat hotter than lava, and created fuel out of thin air. Real fuel, not batteries, not electricity. Actual liquid fuel, the kind you can pour into engines. And the strange part is, it may soon become cheaper than oil itself, which raises a terrifying question nobody wants to ask out loud. If we can already make free fuel from sunlight, why are we still burning millions of years of dead matter beneath our feet? Because this story is not just about energy. It's about power, control, money, and one invention that could quietly change civilization forever. A few years ago, in a place most people would never notice, researchers built a machine that looked almost absurdly simple. Mirrors, steel towers, blinding light. Nothing about it screamed revolution. But inside that system, temperatures climbed beyond 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to split molecules apart, hot enough to mimic the violent chemistry that normally happens deep inside stars. And then something unbelievable happened. They used sunlight to create fuel, not theoretical fuel, not maybe one-day fuel. Real hydrogen, real synthetic gasoline, real jet fuel, made from sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide pulled from the air itself. At first, it sounded impossible, like science fiction designed to attract headlines, but labs across the world kept repeating the process. Switzerland, Germany, the United States, Australia, Japan, different countries, different teams, same result. And what happened next shocked energy analysts everywhere. The cost started dropping, fast. Because unlike oil, sunlight doesn't need drilling. It doesn't need pipelines stretching across continents. It doesn't need tankers crossing oceans guarded by military fleets. The sun simply arrives every morning, for free, and that changes everything. What most people don't realize is that the Earth receives more energy from the sun in 1 hour than humanity uses in an entire year. 1 hour. Think about that. Civilization has spent centuries fighting over energy shortages, while an incomprehensible nuclear reactor burns above our heads every single day, flooding the planet with more power than we could ever imagine. But for decades, we treated sunlight like a weak backup plan, something for calculators and rooftop panels. Meanwhile, hidden behind headlines about electric cars and lithium batteries, another race quietly began, a race to turn sunlight into liquid fuel. Because batteries have a problem nobody likes talking about. Airplanes can't easily run on giant battery packs. Cargo ships crossing oceans can't stop every few hours to recharge. Industrial steel factories need insane levels of continuous heat. The world still depends on fuel, dense, portable, storable fuel. And this is where the story becomes almost unbelievable. Scientists discovered that by using concentrated solar heat, they could trigger chemical reactions that create hydrogen from water. Then, by combining that hydrogen with captured carbon dioxide, they could produce synthetic hydrocarbons nearly identical to gasoline, diesel, or jet fuel. In other words, they found a way to recycle carbon using sunlight itself. The fuel burns, releases carbon, then that same carbon can theoretically be captured again and turned back into fuel, an energy loop, and if perfected, it could completely rewrite the future of transportation. But that's not even the strangest part. Some experts believe the oil industry saw this coming years ago, because history has repeated this pattern before. In the late 1800s, entire cities smelled like horse manure. Streets overflowed with waste, disease spread everywhere. People believed the horse was permanent, essential, untouchable. Then the automobile arrived, and within decades, an entire system collapsed. Not slowly, suddenly. That's what technological disruption looks like. It feels impossible until it happens all at once. And energy markets are beginning to show the same warning signs. Major airlines are already investing billions into solar-derived synthetic fuel research because they know electric planes alone may never handle long-distance travel efficiently. Militaries are studying sunlight fuel systems because transporting oil into war zones is incredibly dangerous and expensive. Even oil-rich nations are quietly pouring money into solar fuel technology. Why? Because they understand something the public doesn't. The first country that masters ultra-cheap synthetic fuel could control the next century of global energy. Imagine deserts transformed into gigantic fuel farms. No drilling, no fracking, no pipelines leaking into oceans. Just sunlight, mirrors, air, and chemistry. Sounds utopian, but reality is more complicated. Because creating solar fuel still faces massive challenges. The systems are expensive, efficiency remains imperfect, and storing hydrogen safely is notoriously difficult. Critics argue the process wastes energy compared to direct electrification. Others claim the infrastructure transition could take decades, and they're not entirely wrong. But But this is where the psychology of innovation becomes fascinating. People often underestimate technologies right before they explode. In the 1990s, mobile phones were bulky luxury items with terrible battery life. Most people thought they'd remain niche business tools forever. Then suddenly, everyone had one. Solar panels followed the same path. Decades ago, they were absurdly expensive. Now they're among the cheapest forms of electricity in human history, and solar fuel may be approaching a similar tipping point, especially as oil becomes more politically unstable. Every war, every supply chain disruption, every economic crisis. Oil prices swing violently, affecting everything from groceries to transportation to healthcare costs. But sunlight doesn't care about geopolitics. The sun shines on democracies, on dictatorships, on rich nations, on poor nations, which makes this technology emotionally powerful in a way most people don't fully appreciate. For the first time in modern history, energy independence might not belong only to countries sitting on underground resources. It could belong to anyone with sunlight. And suddenly, the future stops looking like scarcity. It starts looking like abundance. Researchers at several energy institutes have already demonstrated solar reactors capable of producing syngas, a mixture of hydrogen and carbon monoxide used to create liquid fuels. Companies are racing to scale these systems commercially, and some projections suggest synthetic solar fuels could become cost competitive in the coming decades as technology improves and carbon pricing expands. But behind the science is a deeper human story, because energy shapes civilization itself. It determines who becomes wealthy, who controls trade, who wins wars, who survives crises. When energy changes, everything changes. And perhaps that's why this topic feels strangely emotional. Deep down, people are exhausted. Exhausted by rising fuel prices, exhausted by pollution, exhausted by feeling trapped inside systems they can't control. The idea that sunlight, something touching your skin every morning, could eventually power planes, trucks, factories, and cities feels almost poetic. Like humanity overlooked the answer because it seemed too obvious. But here's what nobody tells you. The biggest barrier may not be science, it may be inertia. Entire industries are built around oil infrastructure worth trillions of dollars. Refineries, pipelines, tankers, political alliances, financial systems. Changing that machine is like trying to redirect an ocean. And yet, history shows it happens faster than expected once momentum begins. Horse carriages vanished, film cameras disappeared, DVD stores collapsed, landline phones became relics. At first, the old system laughs at the new one, then it fights it. Then one day, people wake up and realize the world already changed. And maybe we're closer to that moment than anyone realizes. Because while most people scroll social media or argue over gas prices, laboratories are quietly building the foundation for an entirely different future. A future where fuel is manufactured from sunlight. A future where carbon becomes recyclable instead of disposable. A future where the deserts of Earth become the energy fields of civilization. And if that future arrives, the consequences will reach far beyond transportation. It could reduce pollution, reshape economies, lower geopolitical tension, transform public health in polluted cities, and fundamentally alter humanity's relationship with energy itself. The strange part is the sun has been offering this power all along. Every sunrise delivers more energy than entire nations consume, and for most of human history, we simply watched it happen, but not anymore. Now, humanity is learning to capture sunlight not just as electricity, but as stored chemical power, portable energy, usable energy, fuel born from light itself. And maybe one day, people will look back at oil the same way we look back at whale oil lamps or steam locomotives, necessary for their time, but temporary. Because the future may not come from beneath the earth. It may come from above it, from the same star that has powered life on this planet for billions of years, quietly waiting for us to finally understand what was possible. And if this story opened your eyes, if you believe humanity deserves to know about the technologies quietly reshaping our future, then stay close to Vita Nova Health. Because some of the most important revolutions in history don't begin with explosions. They begin with ideas the world almost ignored.